work session to order for June 9th. We have 14 and 17 Hancock Street here for site plan review. So whoever wants to present can come up and sit in those chairs.
I'm just going to do a little intro.
All right.
Ellen's going to present. I'm Rodney Rowland, Director of Environmental Sustainability for Strawberry Bank. What's before you is a very exciting document for us. As you know, we have flooding issues on the site. This comes from out of our June 2023 Stormwater Management Plan, where we identified, I think, 9 areas of concern that were prone to flooding. This particular plan is addressing areas 3, 6, and 7. It includes the southern tier of the Puddle Dock, the big field at Strawberry Bank, along with our parking lot, since that's a main cause of flooding as well. And then while we were at it, we kind of looked at our visitor entry experience and did a little work to that as well. But this basically, the main reason for this is a stormwater basin or storage area that will allow us to store stormwater away from our historic structures that are vulnerable to flooding along Puddle Lane, and store that in an area until the tide goes out in the river and the stormwater system takes it away for us. So that's the general concept with a lot of other stuff sometimes.
Thanks. Yeah, that's okay. I'm Ellen Bigger. I'm a landscape architect with Horsty Witten Group. We have Rodney with the Strawberry Bank Museum. We also have Liz here, Placework Architecture, and Erica for traffic engineering. So if there's any questions, we should have it covered. As Rodney mentioned, this project comes from a long history of looking at how to improve, starting with looking at how to improve stormwater on the campus in particular, and then it's kind of focused in on this main heart of campus, which is Puddle Dock area. So this came out of previous planning with the stormwater planning and then a concept planning, and we're currently in schematic design phase. At the end of schematic design phase, I'm going to be moving into design development. We like to have these at this point as we've kind of started to really hash things out to make sure that we're on the same page as everyone, and if there's any major things that still need to be adjusted or that you guys see that could be improved or align with the city as well, so that as we go into design development, we're considering everything here. So in schematic design, still designing and tweaking in more detail as we go. I thought these were the easiest plans to look at as well. As Rodney mentioned, we do have the existing condition survey if there's anything that we want to flip back to as well. Just tried to clean it up a little bit for legibility, but showing this main Puddle Dock area, which is really where a lot of the heart of the campus is. So there are a lot of events happen. It's how people first arrive to the site with the visitor center and come in to the parking lot off of Hancock Street, and then the parking lot flow, come to the visitor center, and then where a lot of events happen. And as Rodney mentioned, currently right now there's some issues, especially with stormwater and flooding. So there'll be periods where this entire area is kind of the bowl of the neighborhood that will flood and then be wet and not be very usable for a long period of time, because it's kind of like a shallow bowl that goes out and takes up a lot of their space. This is the historic Puddle Dock area. So quite a while ago, this used to be where ships would come in. So under the ground here, there's quite a few old wharfs and archaeological information that we're also trying to work around, as well as because of that history, some historic fill in this area and things like that as well. So we're taking all that into context, but kind of trying to shift back towards that original spot of where water is being stored and controlling where it's going, because it is where it's coming to right now. And then as far as the existing outlet for our bowl is that there is a connection out to the river, which affects the site on high tide or low tide, or depending on the cycles as well. So that was the overall goal, but as we're looking at this, since it's the main heart of campus, it kind of expanded into visitor experience and how people are getting here, and arriving to the site, circulating around it as well, so that as we are making these improvements for stormwater, we're considering that since it is a larger project. Starting at the very front for the parking and how people are arriving, at least by car, is we're looking at reorganizing the existing parking lot. So it would require redoing this area to really organize the spaces and how people are coming into the site. So the entrance off of Hancock Street is shifted a little bit, and we proposed an entrance out onto Marcy Street that was there in the past as well. And then it expands out a little bit so that we can basically make it a safer condition for how cars are getting here and moving around, and then orienting people towards the visitor center up front. With doing this and the boardwalk, we're trying to create a greater presence on Marcy Street and a better connection to the park across the street, so that we're drawing people in from this area versus it feeling kind of disconnected. And then drawing people up to the visitor center where there's an expanded entry terrace, ticketing pavilion that'll help us with the events and things like when there is ice skating happening here. It provides a little bit more space for rentals and being able to use the visitor space as well. So this is a plaza area, some pavilion, canopy, and then some specific little structures for ticketing and those.
There's definitely a tie to the history of Puddle Dock. If you looked at the old photographs, sort of the wharf structure, buildings on top of the wharves, that kind of look is what we're going to go for as we move forward.
Yeah, so everything here is trying to tie back to that as well. So even for the stormwater basin that we have here in the center, where the kind of very low wall, so this gray line to the north of the stormwater basin, it's very short. We're working out the grades, but maybe a foot and a half, something like that. That just outlines where the wharves were at a certain point in history. They did adjust over time, coming in and out, but it starts to create that outline, and it also helps us create where the east lawn is, which is where events would be, versus where the water is going to be, versus it spreading out and kind of taking over the entire space right now. Looking at organizing all of that, including where the ice skating rink is right now, staying in the same location with a few adjustments for the shape based on the entry terrace, and then some other improvements to the west, so the west rain garden, looking at making sure we have other areas where the water's able to go to keep it away from the historic structures before it eventually overflows and everything comes to the stormwater basin and then out to the river through the outlet. There's other little improvements, some materials and things around the site, as well as consolidating parking lot near the restaurant right now so that we maintain the open green to Marcy Street. And just to provide specific connections and walkways across the green space for when people are leaving the visitor center, and try to orient them to the campus and start their tour around the rest of campus. So that's just the general overview. Like I mentioned, this is we're happy to take any questions or anything like that. We're still working out a lot of the design details, but would love to have your thoughts or input. Unless there's anything else anyone wanted to add?
All right, thank you. Yeah, open up for questions.
Question on the, maybe on the pavilion or the canopy, because it's going to be a built structure, you're going to build that. And then, and I'm sure you know, completely within the flood zone, the extended flood zone, so flood resistant construction and then how that applies to the existing structure, right? If it's, you know, exceeding 40% of the value. Just be mindful that we want to do our research on the flood resistant construction and how it affects the existing building.
Yeah, so we are definitely considering the floodplain in this area. We have, sorry, I forgot to mention this before, we have met with DES as like an initial meeting as well to go over that, and then the engineering department to go over some of the stormwater stuff, just as initial similar, give us your thoughts kind of thing, nothing set in stone. We did talk about the floodplain with them a bit as well. Definitely making sure things are flood resistant. Also, as a part of this not necessarily what we're showing, but what we were looking at when we first started this study was the resiliency aspect of this. So we're talking about a lot of the storms that are coming into the site, but we're also considering what's happening when the river is coming up a little bit as well. At least no major changes to buildings or things like that, but we're aware of what risks are and what elevations can be, and have been including that as we're looking at these things as well.
Right, being that the floor would need to be at a certain elevation,
Yeah, that's
foot above.
what I had for a
So
question. Do you know that?
that's concerning, unless you get it engineered. Alternatively, there are ways that you can get that elevation lower, but you have to use very specific engineering practices. It's the way that I read it. It's not always a hard no, but, you know, so what if your floor may be higher than the floor of the adjacent building?
Right, do you know yet the elevation? I guess starting with the east lawn and then the buildings, what their base, the grade will be, grade plane? Yeah,
Right now we're looking at the east lawn being close to elevation 8 in that area.
and when you're done?
So existing, it's close to 6.5, 7. So it's right around 7 existing. East lawn would be raised, it was around 8, and then the area next to it would be lowered quite a bit. And then the building, I forget is I think it was 9.5 is the existing visitor center building right now.
So I think what Shanti's pointing out is it needs to be 10 to be out of our extended flood hazard zone.
Yeah.
The base, the
The floor, the
The
finished
floor,
floor elevation.
finished
So
floor
it sounds like you
elevation.
could do that.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're right there.
if you're almost there.
Is that like a
Yeah,
building though, the red?
So
Red
the
building.
darker red is like a ticketing pavilion
Yeah.
type of a
Oh,
thing.
They're
And-
just
a
an
little
open air
station.
pavilion, there's no,
It's not a
So there's
building.
The ground will just, it's just a
Oh.
roof.
So
It's
major-
more like a gazebo or something?
so like a wharf, think wharf and with outbuildings on top of it,
How
like
about
a shed.
You mean like a concrete pad with a roof above it?
No.
No, just ground and,
Like
sorry, when
island.
you say that, like island.
I think of like wooden
Like-
planks in the
Like
water.
dock, like a dock.
So, yeah, so we're still working out all the
like a
details,
dog.
but that is
Thank
one of the
you.
ways
Thank
that we're
you.
talking about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
like a
go.
dock.
Okay.
So I think we're still, maybe Liz can talk to this a little bit more.
I guess that would be flood resistant, the dock would just
Yeah,
go up
that
and
sounds
down, right?
Yeah,
So
could be a
this-
floating dock.
so this- So this,
Anchor it down.
all this brown here,
Is additional
Is-
roof?
this is roof,
Yes, that's additional.
and the
Over the
canopy is a
pavilion.
roof.
Canopy is roof,
So
and
that just has posts holding it up.
it might be a combination of that. So
But it won't be enclosed,
I
addition space.
I believe the darker orange will be at least partially
Right, the ticketing.
enclosed.
They'd be walls, but they would be like,
That's correct.
we might do retail out of one or tickets out, seasonal tickets out of another. It's not meant to be a heated air
I
conditioned
think
space.
it's the conditioned space that, yeah, would probably be,
So it might be,
Sounds like
right?
we'll figure it out. Well, decks, no, because it holds true to decks, we've agreed.
They have to be up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just went, but
Right.
I think we'll be able to figure this out, though.
Yep.
I mean, it's good to know that you're at 9.5.
Yeah.
I turned the spot elevation off on this existing, but I know it was above 9 is what I wanna say for the finished floor for existing. But you're saying, so,
Something like that.
boardwalks and things like
This is the
that would have
boardwalk
to be
people would come
above
down
your
to.
elevation
okay.
10.
Into an open air
As
with
well.
little
Yeah.
outbuildings.
Yeah, we've
I don't see
treated
that as an
decks that
issue.
way.
Show those,
I mean,
I
we can
don't
talk
see
about
that
it,
as an issue, this is a roof, post and a
So your,
roof.
the
Yeah,
visitors
it's
coming
more
down
like-
the boardwalk would
yeah.
see these little shed buildings.
Yeah.
And then the visitor centers in the
like a
background.
wharfed out.
Yeah.
But in
The boardwalk, right.
And this is what it's based off, the precedent that we used, are all
From
these,
the old.
yeah, these old beautiful,
Oh.
puddle dock
Right.
images.
Nice.
There is, so in the center, so where the stormwater basin is, we do propose like a boardwalk connection that goes out from Mercy Street and then comes up. So this would be how we have grading right now, because it needs to connect to the street at a lower elevation that comes up slightly as it's coming to the visitor center.
I think that probably doesn't have to be.
That would take some-
Yeah, I think so. But the lawn, I was just thinking you'd be up a little higher on the lawn than 8, but
We're still working out the details, but a lot of it is just kind of giving a hole for where things could go to. So during very large storms, honestly, a lot of it might be flooded in
It still might
general.
get wet.
Yeah, but during smaller storms, which are much more of your regular use, is when it's like being controlled to a
Yeah,
location.
our limitation are the historic structures on Puddle Lane, because they have basement sash that are pretty much at grade right now. So how do you bring all that up
You can't go up,
without altering the buildings? So
you'll create a dam from the uphill side.
Yeah, yeah, so it's kind of trying to keep that spot or that view and then just trying to control where it's going to as well. And then as we are looking at this and going through permitting, if we pinch everything in too much, then we're filling in those areas for where it does go during larger storms also. So we're being conscious of that to make sure we're not, because right now, something else we're trying to do here is we're trying to keep all of the soil on site here. So we are planning on raising the parking lot at this location and putting soil under the parking lot, basically. So already on that side, it's kind of coming up on that other side of the stormwater basin in elevation.
Speaking of the parking lot, my one concern is, can not the biggest fire truck we have, but can we get a fire engine around this corner? This area here, this is narrower of a turn than the existing, so that's my only concern is whether we can get a fire.
Yeah,
I know we got that number from you. You told us what the turn radius was or something, but we'll check.
Yeah, okay, we could shrink it down a little from that one, cause that one's the big truck. I'm more concerned with getting an engine, not just a full ladder truck, but.
yeah, I believe we had checked that specifically for that, but I can verify to make sure that we do in the next one also.
I thought you said all fires on our site would be, you'd only use the pumper.
I told you you needed a permit for it,
No, pumper.
just the pump, yeah,
Antique pumper.
oh, the antique, yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
Going back to elevations, I understand you've been working with Eric Fiedler, the city engineer, a little bit on the drainage here. We are gonna need pretty good details on how you plan to connect into the stormwater system. I know you guys are paying attention to, where the elevation of the actual ocean is. So, backflow device in the manhole where you guys connect in to make sure that during king tide events with heavy storms, that water isn't actually coming back from the Piscataqua River onto your sites, onto the site coming in through those, your drainage structures. In kind of that line, Marcy Street is very narrow in this area. I don't know if you guys have looked into connecting the stormwater system farther up onto Puddle Lane so that you guys don't need to dig into Marcy Street. That might be something worth looking into. That is probably the narrowest section of Marcy Street, especially with the players ring building, narrowing the sidewalk even, causing some people to walk into the road.
Yeah, so we have been looking at the connection, we have been looking at the elevations and the many
There's a lot to
yes.
look at, yeah.
And everything coming over there, and we have talked about the backflow preventer, especially like you said, like where it's coming into our site or where we're having
Yeah,
everything
I
go
would
out.
like it to leave
Yeah.
the site, not come back on.
Yes, yeah, I think that's what everyone wants,
Yeah.
right? At least so far, understanding is the best option we've been thinking about is connecting in Marcy Street, mostly to make sure there's as direct a line to get things out as possible, versus connecting into the pipe. That still is an option that we could look at connecting here, but that's how we've been looking at it, is that we can providing as direct of a connection here versus like the pipe that could be charged quite a bit further back is how we've been considering it.
I think there's also a timing issue. I know the city's planning on changing both the structure in Marcy and the pipe going to the river.
Yeah.
If we could dovetail with that to tie in, then it's kind of a win.
Yeah, I don't know who's happening first, but that is an old brick structure that I don't believe is in very good shape. So if you guys are first connecting on, that could.
Given that we have to raise private funds, I'm guessing you're gonna be first.
I don't know how safe of a bet, honestly. But yeah, I'm not against the connection in on Marcy Street, it's just, it's not a nice connection.
How big of a culvert is that?
This is a big pipe, really, really big pipe, and looking at our GIS before, I believe we've got at least 3 coming into it already with the one outlet, so this would be a 5th connection into that one manhole. I don't know the size of it, but
So we were looking at a 24-inch, and the elevation we were looking to come in at is quite a bit higher than the other spots. So we got at least the elevations the best we could. The information wasn't entirely there for like the sewage and other
Yeah.
things out there to try to make sure we have coverage for all of it. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I know there are a lot of things coming into there. And
and coming into there, you're crossing the sewer, coming in on Puddle Lane, you'd still have to cross the sewer. So there's not a benefit,
yeah.
Either way for that, but something to, I guess, consider that it might be easier to construct.
Yeah, we were hoping, depending on timing, like we were saying, if you guys are there first, and obviously we have to go through all this, that we could find a way to include the stub or the eventual connection out that way also.
Yeah, it's something to work together.
So the boardwalk is wood, but the white crossings, are they just gravel like your paths out there?
I don't know if material, like the exact material
Not
has
there
been
yet.
completely worked out, so
Okay.
we do know in one thing talking, with Eric, with the engineering, is we are gonna be trying to reduce the amount of, impervious pavement we have here, so we have an idea with boardwalk, parking, some of this, but we haven't completely worked out all the details for all.
Okay.
So the one thing about the parking is that it's currently non-conforming because it's in the front yard and closer to the street than the building, so I think the expansion of the parking in those areas would need variances.
Okay.
Are they expanding?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
They're
it's,
adding all this here.
you can
and
see,
that's trying to figure
on the plan, there's a really light gray line, that just shows the edge of the existing parking lot, so it's coming out a bit.
Yeah.
We're adding some green. It's easy, when it's a PDF, it's easy to like, I've gotten used to that, like when you just flip and you're like, you see them adjust, but that really light gray line, that's right by south parking, title, that's kind of the edge of the existing parking lot right now.
Okay.
Is the intent to have the parking lot one way around that circle, it's a counterclockwise flow?
Yeah,
Like is there-
yes, so that, especially so it'll work well with, the drop off and arrival also, so you just have one car coming around that way, and then it would work for buses to do the same.
School bus can do that?
What is the, you see the van, the accessible parking, now it looks like there's a tip down drop off and arrival, but then there's steps that go up into the pavilion?
Yeah, so they actually come down, so the parking lot's being raised here. So where you have the accessible parking, there's that platform, then it kind of ramps down a little bit, and then the white section between the three trees.
So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I could also, I forgot, I brought this also, I could point up here. And that helps. But yeah, so this section right here is like a ramp down into this area. So this entire parking lot is kind of tipped up, like it's raised, because it's where we're moving some soil in here. So then these are kind of coming down into where the entry pavilion and canopy are. So that's the accessible route here, where there's the steps that would come down.
Do you have an agreement to park buses off-site? Because it looks like there's no bus parking spaces on site.
I don't think there's a formal agreement, but there have been talks to allow bus parking, I believe. But I don't think there's a formal agreement for anything.
But the intent is not to have the buses on site, right? Or is that?
For the most part, to not have them on site.
So, there's a couple things with the driveways, just need to make sure that sight lines at both driveways are adequate, and that the turning radius can accommodate buses and emergency vehicles. The driveway on Marcy Street, it looks like it's not coming out at a 90-degree angle. I don't know if it's possible to realign that a little better.
For this.
And then look, the sidewalk there along Marcy Street, it looks like you're moving the sidewalk onto your property, is that correct? It's difficult to see where the property line is there.
Yeah, there is green there. I think we were looking at including a green area in there. I think we need to look at that a little bit closer with the grading still in that area.
Cause it looks like a shift in the sidewalk, cause the sidewalk's out at the curb edge right now,
Yeah.
then it would be shifting in and then shifting back out after totally. I think you wanna have the sidewalk remain on city street, not on private property.
Yeah, we can keep it out where it is currently located.
And then with that east parking lot being a dead-end parking lot, you really should be limiting the spaces to no more than 7 in a row, because it gets difficult to see if any vehicles are parked in the last few spaces coming in. You get someone who drives in thinking that the space is empty, but it turns out to be a Mini Cooper, and then they have no way of getting out without backing out. If someone's in behind them, that's a problem. So you either need to have another way out of that parking lot, or eliminate a few spaces so that you don't have more than 7 in a row.
If it's existing, we need to do that.
Yeah, I think existing is sort of just a wide open area, but you have the ability to turn around easier than you would with this confined.
Because it's formalized a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Eric, what if there's a spot to turn around? Like there is a kind of a dead end.
Yeah, there's that dead end area, but that's really intended for vehicles that are parked in a space to pull into
Right.
that when they're
But
backing
if
out.
that was a little bigger, would that,
If it's enough to turn around in, sometimes, you put the handicap space at the end and you can use the combination of the access aisle, because if the handicap space is empty, no one's parked in it, or the access aisle is there, you would be able to use the access aisle as a turnaround space. But I don't know if you have to keep the handicap up near the entrance like that, or if you could move the handicap down the other end. Probably with a dead end aisle, you gotta have the handicap at the entrance, that's the way out to the sidewalk.
Could they stripe the last space?
That's no parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't need the parking.
Well, I
You
thought
You
you
could
said
do a hammerhead turnaround, but you'd have to eliminate
7.
maybe a couple spaces.
Yeah, eliminate,
7.
yeah, if you eliminate a space at
No
the end.
parking sign, go in and back and then head out,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You're almost there, you have that cutout at the bottom.
Oh,
and then eliminate, 1 or 2 on one side and.
Yep.
And then you've got that back up, yeah.
That's my issue, that, just provide a plan showing sight lines at each driveway. So for sure that you don't want any proposed vegetation or trees or something to block the sight lines, or neighbors' fences or hedges, so. Well, you'll paint arrows on the parking lot or have some signage for the one-way flow, so, because you could probably accommodate two-way flow. But if you want to have one-way flow, it would help to do something to define that.
Yeah, definitely. The arrows are starting to show on there and signage to go with that also.
Are these other rain gardens, do they have under drainage or are they just infiltration rain gardens?
We would, we haven't gone through all this yet, but we would,
They exist now, because we put 3 in.
well, the
Right.
the bottom one, yeah, has the existing connection to the,
But there's 2
Pipe
others.
that goes
There's
through.
another
Oh,
one
yeah.
here, and there's another one here.
oh,
On the
yeah.
same
The
pipe.
visitor center one, that's not there now, is it? The
Which
visitor-
one?
Behind the visitor center?
Oh,
Visitor center rain garden,
here. No, those do not, right, those,
just-
don't have a connection or.
just infiltration
Yeah.
trenches. Space.
The intent with that is, just the roof, the additional roof that's,
Oh, yeah.
added in
Yep.
that area, which is the lighter tan.
And a lot of new trees. Is this true to form or is it just artistic license?
I think it's artistic license. I mean, we've got the row of, I think they're crab apples along here, white pines along here, but those will go.
Yeah, it's especially along the street, we have those trees, but especially on the parking and all that, would be looking for planting all those, would have to replace the pines, and some additional planting around the site too.
And the landscape islands will be vegetated in between, it'll be grass or something?
Yes, we are exploring, if those need to be maybe little mounds where we put a little bit more soil with, a cap, or if we don't need to do that, if they could be spots where some more stormwater could go as well. So it's as we're like developing this
Depending on
and
your
looking at,
soil
yeah,
balance, yep.
cut fill balance, and that's gonna determine which direction, but either way, they're gonna be green.
And the wall, I imagine it doesn't have to be very high on the east lawn side, it's more for the other side, right?
Yeah, so the other side is the one that comes up quite a few feet, which we have currently the slope coming up that side, and then the one on the east lawn is very low, how we have it. It's mostly to define the edge and to show the edge of the wharf, really, for that.
Is that gonna be concrete?
I don't think so. I think we try to make it look like a wharf structure somehow.
Oh, like wooden?
Yeah, what was that wood you said that's invasive? Yeah.
Sequoia?
Akoya,
Sequoia.
it's a treated wood that has 50-year warranty when sitting in standing
Something like
water.
Wow. Sounds good. What? Let's see what's there now. Any site lighting changes or
The parking lot for sure.
parking lot? So that, we just have dark sky friendly regulations and just be conscious of the neighbors right there, obviously.
Yeah, with everything directed
Shielded,
down,
yeah, down
shielded,
and-
yeah.
Yep.
Definitely. Especially for there, we wouldn't want it to like creep over anywhere right there. It's really just for the safety and improving that arrival.
Is that a dumpster in the east parking lot? There's a rectangle across from the two handicapped ADA spaces. Is that,
It's a dumpster, I believe, so existing right now, it's at the end of the lot where the green is, so we'd be finding a new spot for that.
Need to be able to make sure the trash truck can get to it and move it around.
Yeah, well, a lot of, we've looked at a lot for turning, and will, as we like develop this, I think right now the entrances into this is actually a little bit wider than the existing entrance into here.
That would be good, for fire trucks, buses, show the paths through the site, in and out of the driveways, make sure they can make all the turns.
Yeah, yes, we've been doing
Yeah,
that,
we-
especially,
We discussed this on the previous work session. This isn't an issue for us, it's only the parking lot, that's all. I know we can get in here, as long as you're not making it any smaller.
Yeah, I think maybe you already asked it, Eric, but in that east parking lot, that first accessible parking space,
Mhm.
maybe it's just because the scale is off, so it's hard to imagine, but that's a super hard turn, right, to get into that first space, like if all the others are occupied and you need to get into that first accessible space and you drive in, you actually,
so the way you would be approaching is from the right lane, so when you're coming in,
right, so you
let
have
me
to,
go up to the, let me
you
go
have
up
to
to
go
the
far
board.
right.
Yeah, so you're coming in this way, oh, wrong one, here we go. You're coming in on the right side over here, and then you're turning, and then this is like a 10-foot width place, so you would technically have like a little bit of a lane, like it wouldn't be as tight as.
And that green
Yeah.
is elevated vegetation,
It's, it'll probably be low to keep sight lines,
sight
it'll
lines.
probably be, maintained low, and the trees are back a little bit from that as well, so you'll be able to see.
so you may be able to see the spot is available.
Yeah,
Got
you'll
it.
be able to see that completely from that angle, yes. Yeah, the darker green does represent some additional planting, but a lot of it, we really wanna maintain sight lines here, so it'll be good if there's something, vegetated here that's low, so when you're standing here, it'll block the cars, but you could still see over it, would be the intent for some of that, so it doesn't feel like there's a parking lot right next to that, but nobody feels disconnected from this or the other parts of the space also.
Yeah, if you can, it's always desirable to have a throat in the driveway at least 20 feet, so that you're not blocking vehicles or vehicles not pulling in or out right in the entrance of the driveway.
You're talking about, here
Yeah, that
or
one,
here?
yeah, that throat, the second,
Okay, that one, okay.
yeah. Same with the Marcy Street, it looks like a little short for the lower part of that driveway. No, the other
This
driveway, that one there, yeah, that first space on the bottom,
Yeah, so,
that one there, it's a little close to the,
so just try to keep the 20 feet off
Yeah.
of that for
Carling.
staging. But overall, changes in kind of entrance and how people are coming into the site and things like that, no big concerns based on those adjustments.
Can I just ask going forward, so if we do move the entrance of the Hancock Street, we'd be wanting to take parking spaces from down there,
Mhm.
but then you could have them back over here, so there's a process for that?
Yeah.
Request that?
It's conditional use. You'd have to show if whether or not you're losing any spaces. If you're not losing any, I don't think it's an issue, but
So it's an even swap, it's
Yeah.
better, okay.
just show that what the equivalence is. I know there's a fire hydrant up near the other driveway too.
Yeah, there's a huge hashed off area because of both the hydrant and our sight lines from our
Yeah.
exit. So if the sight lines go away, but the hydrant's still there, so.
Any other questions? Are you all set? You have
Yeah,
enough
but-
information to?
Yes, this was great. It's so in part, I appreciate everyone taking the time and looking at this. It's also so that we will obviously be coming back with
Yep.
these, so that everyone's very familiar with it. And if there are other things that are coming up, then we'd like to keep communication open. So if there's something you think of, please feel free to reach out. We're gonna develop this further and want to make sure that it takes all of things the city wants to see into consideration so that we can really have this as a partnership and everyone is familiar then when this is gonna be back in front of you in a little bit.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.